It's time for
DodgerHeads.
high fly ball into right field. Dodgers have won it all in 2020. Shohei Ohtani, 50-50 club. Strikes him out. There's a drive. Shohei Ohtani. Freeman hits the ball. She is gone. Birthday party, Los Angeles. Your Dodgers have won the World Series.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Blake, and I'm hosting tonight, first time being on here in a while, and joined by Anthony. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, considering we just saw 3 days of mostly putrid baseball from the good guys. But hey, it was 4th of July weekend. Hope everyone had a fun and safe holiday and got to get away from some of the massacring we saw at Dodger Stadium this weekend a little bit.
Yeah, I was under the impression there were no games that happened this week for the Dodgers. So, yeah, we can kind of move on. But to get into it for real, so, yeah, to start it off, a lot of news today, a lot of stuff to get into. We'll start with the series. The Dodgers were swept by the Astros. Wasn't particularly a close series either, like one where you could see it kind of going either way. The Dodgers just got outplayed pretty much in every facet of the game. They lost every game in a significant way. There wasn't a whole lot of positives to take away besides for like maybe Emmett Sheehan's start. But other than that, it was just kind of a brutal weekend for the Dodgers. You have any concern about them moving forward? I assume I know your answer. It's probably going to be similar to mine here, but we got to calm the people down a bit.
Yeah, look, it was not great. It wasn't fun to watch. Wasn't fun to keep up with on your phone if you were busy and out. And especially, because it's the Astros, just adds a little insult to the injury. It happens. It happens to good teams. It happens to the best kinds of teams. But it's just never fun to experience. Long term, no, I don't think this is a problem. We just came out of one of probably the hotter stretches of the season for this team, where they looked every bit the best record in Major League Baseball. And, a 3-game sweep to Houston, again, not ideal, doesn't feel great, but does not move me off the fact that this is still one of the best teams in baseball. They just need to get healthier. I mean, in all fairness, that's kind of a big part of what all of this kind of stuff is that you're going to run into these stretches where you just have too many guys down at some point, and there's not that guy to come in and stop the bleeding, right? Like on the Saturday game that was closer, Shohei goes in and he throws 2 really good innings, and then after that it becomes a bulk game and a bullpen game and all of that, and it doesn't go great. If you are healthy enough where Shohei doesn't have to be put in that situation as an opener, and the bullpen doesn't have to be put in that situation to pick him up afterward, then, maybe you have a guy like Blake Snell or Tyler Glasnow out there, and they can give you 6, and they can, maybe they give up 1 or 2 runs, and it's a game that you end up winning. So those small little things in terms of like how this could have been different, a lot of that is still, I think, attributable to just these guys aren't healthy enough.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, when we get to October, if these two teams do match up again in the World Series, which probably a lot of people have these two teams picked to meet in the World Series, we're going to see a much different team. The Dodgers started Ben Kasparius, essentially Justin Wrobleski, even though Shohei was the one who started the game, but it was Wrobleski who pitched the 2 innings, or the most innings after Shohei's 2 innings. And then today you had Emmett Sheehan. So, that's not the rotation the Dodgers are going to bring into a 5 to 7 game series in October. So, we have to put that into consideration. But even then, I don't think the starting pitching was the biggest issue for the team this weekend.
Agreed.
It was the offense by far, and the defense was just kind of sloppy all around as well. So those are things I don't think the Dodgers are going to consistently struggle with. Maybe the defense, I'll take a step back there. It's not a great defense, and they have to get better there. But the offense, I have really no concerns about moving forward. And we even saw some signs of life from Mookie and a little bit more from Freddie. So,
Yeah.
like, that's good to see some small positives in the sea of negativity from this weekend. But, yeah, it just wasn't a pretty series at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you in kind of peeling out some of those things that are more impactful long-term than just these 3 games. The Mookie stuff, the Freddie stuff, that could end up being a big deal. Take it back to earlier in the week against the White Sox. Those guys starting to look a little better. Freddie starting to look a little righter. Mookie showing some power flashes in this series. If that stuff continues to trend that way, ultimately, that is going to be massive for this lineup because with Muncy out now, and then having to play some of the guys that are struggling just out of sort of necessity at this point. Those guys are a huge part of this. And when you come into the season, and at any point in the season, you look at those 2 guys in particular, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, to be huge parts of your lineup, pillars of your lineup, along with Ohtani and maybe Teo, those kinds of guys. And when they were struggling the way they have over the last month plus, the lineup can look really, really strong in the middle. And so if those guys are coming around, you know what? If you told me, okay, the Dodgers will go 0-3 this weekend against the Astros, but Mookie and Freddie will start to look right, and then they're going to take off going forward. Sign me up for that 0-3 because their success and their progress in getting better here is much more important than just losing these 3 games over the weekend.
Yeah, I think your mic is kind of messing up a little bit. Like, we can kind of hear you, but sound a little far away or something. But yeah,
okay, sorry.
That's much better. So we also got some super chats here. Freedom said it was humiliating to watch the cow patties of Texas sweep us on our own turf. Yes, I am mad, big time, long time Dodger Blue. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to lose any series, especially not to the Astros, who have that history with 2017 there. At the end of the day, it is just another series in July. Like, it's not any different than losing to any other team on their record. So I get the fan disappointment there. It was a very humiliating series from that sense, but at the same time, like, the Astros are one of the best teams in baseball. They have been playing incredible for the last month or so. They're the only team that's been better than the Dodgers over the last month, and they've been playing very well versus good teams. So, yeah, it's just one of those series where I think you just kind of have to, like, wash it away and try and move on, put it in the back of your mind, and not let it affect the rest of your season.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that. I think you take away the positives in it and the things that can be impactful long term, like I mentioned, and you just hope that those things continue to go in the right way. And then something like Shohei's 2 innings that he looked pretty good in, like that kind of stuff. I think is it has more of a long term impact on the season than just losing these 3 games, which not ideal. Again, not great. Sucks to go through, but there could be more important things to come out of this series than the 3 losses.
Yep. So Hector said starting pitching remains a concern, putting strain on the bullpen, even with arms returning. Health isn't guaranteed. Wouldn't it make sense to trade for a top starter just in case? I mean, I would kind of push back on the starting pitching being a concern. I think they're finally getting to a point where they're taking off a little bit there with Emmett Sheehan coming back. You have Tyler Glasnow coming back, which we'll get into. Blake Snell starting a rehab, which we'll also get into. And you didn't see any of the top Dodger starters this weekend. Shohei Ohtani still building up. So I don't think you have to go trade for a starter. And even with the bullpen, like Dave Roberts talked about the usage today, they avoided Kirby Yates for 3 straight games, and he's one of their high leverage guys. So, like, he's not concerned about the bullpen usage at that point. It's more just a situation where you also need some of those guys to get back with Kopech out, Treinen out. So I think they'll be in the market for bullpen help still because they always are, but I don't think they're going to be too heavy on the starting pitching market.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the reason that they went out and signed those guys, made trade for Glasnow, give him the extension, sign Ohtani, sign Snell, did not trade certain other people who could be in the rotation mix, is so that they didn't have to go out at the deadline and overpay for an arm. They've had to do that in the past, and they've also kind of avoided doing that in the past, and hasn't had success. So I think their blueprint is still viable right now if they expect Snell and Glasnow to be back. And so I think that they bank on that as their post-deadline acquisitions, and maybe Glasnow is here before. We'll see. But I think as those guys come back, Emmett Sheehan back, Ohtani building up, I think you start to see this thing become a lot more formidable than it looks currently. And so bullpen help is probably where they would look to really sort of strengthen the roster. And I think maybe like some bench bat, that kind of thing, bench offense is a possibility. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the bullpen is probably where they go the hardest on the market.
Yeah, it'll probably be kind of a quiet trade deadline just because they're going to expect Muncy to come back, Snell to come back, Glasnow coming back, Treinen and Kopech, and maybe even Gratterall down the line. Like, I just don't see them going too hard into anything. It'll probably lesser than what we saw last deadline with Tommy Edman type deal.
Sure.
And then they ended up getting Flaherty later. But also on the other end of that, there's not really a starting pitcher available who's probably a true, real upgrade for them at this point. Like Sandy Alcantara is the top name available, and he's not been very good this year. A lot of people are complaining about Dustin May, and he's basically Dustin May, but worse. So
that's the other thing too, is there's not, first of all, there's a lot of teams still in contention, and that sort of muddies the outlook in terms of what the deadline can look like. We still have a few weeks or so to get there, but if this many teams still think they have a chance, it's going to be a seller's market for sure. And the ideas about trading Dustin May are interesting, because if we're really that hard up for starting pitching and there are that few names on the market that can make a real impact, I don't understand how those two things sort of mesh. Just keep your guy. He's been fine. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been awful. He's been fine. And then you get your other guys back.
Yeah, I could see them doing that kind of like a starting pitcher trade, but I think it would be someone like Landon Knack maybe, which they've done similar in the past with Ross Stripling and Mitch White type things. But yeah, I just don't really see them trading starting pitching or being in the market for a starting pitcher. Even if you have, say, like Glasnow is hurt for the rest of the year for some reason, you still have 3 or 4 viable starters you trust in a playoff series. So I just don't really see it happening.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
The last one, 300, said the boys got their butts whooped this weekend. Top of the order continues to sputter. Kind of looking forward to the break. I mean, yeah, no disagreements there. Bad series. The offense was not good, specifically the top of the lineup. We've talked a lot about how this team is going to go based on how the top of their lineup does, especially when they're playing good teams. They were very fortunate enough that the middle to bottom of the lineup really carried them through that hot stretch there, but then Muncy got hurt, so now you're losing a key piece there. And they need Ohtani to be Ohtani, they need Mookie to be Mookie, and they need Freddie to be Freddie. And the other stuff is nice to add on, but you need your superstars to be superstars to really continuously win in the majors. Totally agree. And I think that the reason why those guys are superstars is because, sure, they're going to slump. Every player slumps in baseball at some point, but they tend to get back to what makes them superstars at some point. We've had the Mookie conversation, and I know you and Jeff have you had a whole show about it. He'll come back, maybe not to MVP caliber level offensively, but he'll come back enough to where he's not killing you, I think. And then Freddie looks like he's getting back to closer to what he looked like earlier in the season. So again, those guys, they have that track record for a reason, and it's because when they do slump, they kind of find their way out of it and get back to who they are. So it's concerning in the moment, but I don't think it's concerning long term for me with those guys. I think the top of that order will start to hit. Yeah, I have some long-term concerns with Mookie. I've expressed that a lot.
Sure,
but I think it's more like he's going to be a 115, 120 weighted runs created plus guy instead of
I think it's a recalibration of expectations for him.
Yeah, and to be fair, that's still a very, very good player. We're just talking about an all-star instead of a perennial MVP type candidate. So
exactly. Yes.
I don't have huge concerns with it. I think the offense is the least of this team's worries. I have some questions about the defense. We'll see how the bullpen holds up if they don't make any trades and if they can rely on like Treinen and Kopech to stay healthy. But yeah, those are other questions, and we'll see.
Yeah, agree.
So 2 more here. Another one from 300. Thank you. Let's start a GoFundMe getting some to take out Christian Walker's knees or something. That dude owns the Dodgers. Yeah, it's I don't think I've ever seen a player hit better against one single team than Christian Walker has versus the Dodgers throughout his entire career. It's incredible.
Yeah, every team has some of those. There's 2 or 3 guys in the league that every team sort of has. Christian Walker is one of those guys for the Dodgers for sure. Yeah, like the next time, like if we never see that guy, it'll be too soon.
Yeah, and he's had like a down year too this year with the Astros, and then like the Dodgers just get him back on track. Yeah, it's kind of incredible. Like just tip your cap to him and move on. There's not much you can do about it. From Shelly here, what are the chances of Outman coming up? I know Ks are an issue. You both always make me feel better. Well, thank you for that. Regarding Outman, I think he could come back up because he's on the 40-man roster, and they're probably going to need to make a position player move here in the next day. Whether it's Outman coming up and producing, I have doubts about. I know he's been doing fairly well in AAA, but like you said, the strikeout rate is very high there, and he's only hitting in a very hitter-friendly ballpark. Like the AAA Dodgers team is basically the Coors Field type equivalent of the minor leagues, and he's only hitting at home and not doing so well on the road. So I think there's a reason why Ruiz was called up over Outman. I just don't think they have much trust in him anymore.
Yeah, I think so. I think if they did, we would have seen him already this season. So I think that there is a chance that he comes up. But it would strictly be like a defensive replacement sort of role off the bench, which under the right circumstances, I would be totally fine with. That's where his strength lies, and so if that's the role that he's going to fulfill, fine. Because there are going to be times when this outfield definitely needs that. But in terms of like coming up and him being an actual regular piece of the lineup, I don't think so.
He might come up just because they don't really have a backup center fielder behind Pajes on the roster right now, especially with Edman dealing with the injury that we're going to get into. He's not going to go back out there probably, and he's probably taking over as the everyday third baseman going forward. And then Ha-Seong Kim's going to be the starting second baseman essentially because of that. It's leaving Kiké as your backup there, and he's probably going to have to play a lot of third base too. So
he might be hurt too. So
yeah, exactly. He might be the one going on the IL, probably is. So, yeah, they really don't have another center fielder on the team. So, we could see Outman tomorrow. We'll see. So, I think we should go. I was going to save the injury stuff, but we should probably go into it and move the All-Star stuff back just because we're on all that. So
yeah, it feels like a good transition into that.
Yeah. So Tommy Edman, Teoscar Hernández, and Kiké Hernández were all unavailable today, dealing with various injuries. Tommy Edman was hit on his foot yesterday, and he has a small fracture in his right pinky toe. Teoscar Hernández fouled the ball off his left foot, and the scans came back clean, but he's dealing with soreness. And Kiké Hernández has been dealing with a left elbow injury for the past month or so that Dave Roberts said came to a head yesterday. And it's been affecting his swing, but not the defense. So he was unavailable today. And yeah, they probably need to make an IL move to add a position player just because they don't have anyone on the bench right now besides their backup catcher, which is not a good way to play a game. And Dave Roberts did say it's unlikely that Tommy Edman will be on the IL, but the other 2 guys do seem like possibilities. And based on how long Kiké's been dealing with it and Teoscar's being more just soreness, I would guess it is Kiké going on the IL tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. It seems to be the logical step there. If that happens, Blake, let me ask you this. If that happens, and then Edman, once they kind of get the toe situated, he's at third while Muncie's gone. You put Kim at second as the irregular there, who made a couple of fantastic plays today. He is, I do think he can be an elite defensive second baseman as he matures into Major League Baseball. And then it puts Pages in center field. Now, if you want the backup outfielder, because now you're not running Edman out there, you are putting Kiké on the IL, which means you need a second baseman, so that's Kim. So then he's not going to be out there either. So then maybe Outman is the guy that comes up. The Teo situation is interesting then, because if he is a guy who needs to go on the IL, who's that guy that they call up in your opinion?
They just traded for that Alexander guy, CJ, I think his name is. So probably him because he's on the 40-man roster. I think it's CJ Alexander. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Matt covered that one. I was doing other things. So, yeah, their depth is not great right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Hunter Fiducia could technically come up, but he's only giving you catcher first base versatility, which that's what Dalton Rushing and essentially Will Smith are doing. So, yeah, I mean,
not
great right now. They could probably use a trade for a bench bat or something there.
Yeah, I agree. It gets interesting if they have to put both those guys on. Yeah,
but even with that, we're probably going to see Edman miss a game or two, maybe even 3. I know how the Dodgers operate. It'll probably turn into 5, and then he ends up on the IL anyways, just because that's right. How things always go for them. But, yeah, I think we're going to see Miguel Rojas at 3rd tomorrow. We'll see Kim at 2nd. Edman will probably be out again. Teoscar will be out again, I'm sure, unless he heals quite quickly in the next day. And Kiké Hernández probably going to be out. So, yeah.
They do have the Giants, too, at the end of the week. So it may be a situation where and going into the break, too, right? I think because that's the last series before the break, I think.
Yeah.
They may be saying, okay, Tommy Edman, we want you for the weekend series before the break. We're going to slow play this through the Milwaukee series. They may do something like that with him too.
Yeah, and then wanted to address these ones. Someone asked if Kiké was going to need Tommy John. No, because it's not affecting his throwing, just his swing. It's not like a UCL injury there, so very, very doubtful. And then this one said move Conforto to right field and play Rushing in left field. They have continuously said Rushing is not a left fielder. They have no trust in him there. So just not happening. But we do have some good news, and it's all related to the pitching side. So Tyler Glasnow is scheduled to start sometime next week, which would either be Wednesday or Friday. Dave Roberts said they're undecided. And it's a possibility that they push May back to Friday because he's scheduled to start Wednesday. So we'll see what they end up doing there, but good news for them there. And then Blake Snell and Blake Treinen are both starting rehab assignments, and they're expected to be back sometime shortly after the All-Star break. Blake Snell is going to pitch at Rancho for 1 inning. Blake Treinen is going out to Oklahoma City for an inning. So 3 key pitchers for the Dodgers all coming back at a pretty similar time. Like, that's kind of your trade deadline acquisitions right there.
Yeah, I think so. Tyler Glasnow coming back before the All-Star break and before Blake Snell. I don't think anyone had that on their list of predictions about a month or so ago. But we'll take what we can get. I think for Glasnow, it's really interesting because for a while there, it seemed like the Dodgers were just like, we don't know what's wrong with this guy. Maybe it was a situation of like pain tolerance or whatever. But the fact that he's working his way back and that he can be back before the break is a pretty good surprise. I'll be at that game on Friday, so I'm kind of hoping that they make it Friday because I would like to see that in person. But yeah, I think they're looking at this as pseudo trade deadline acquisitions because they've basically been with those 2 starting pitchers without them for the whole season for the most part. And so if you get those guys back healthy in the month of July, that's huge. That is huge. Snell probably is still a little ways off. I don't think he's back in July, but post All-Star break, that's a big pickup for them.
Yeah, I mean they've kind of been going with these hybrid MLB/rehab starts where they send guys out for an inning or 1 or 2 games, maybe 3 on the rehab assignment, and then continue their rehab at the MLB level with like 4 inning starts. So Snell could be back a little sooner than we're expecting him to be, and like Dave said, shortly after the All-Star break. So maybe it is before the trade deadline just so they can kind of see like where he's at essentially and get a view on that. But yeah, I mean, good news for the Dodgers. They desperately need some starting pitching help to kind of fill in for those Wrobleski, Sheehan innings and some of the bullpen games there. So it's going to be nice to see them come back, and then you get Sheehan and Wrobleski into roles where they can actually thrive instead of relying on them to be like key pieces of the actual rotation.
Yeah, definitely. And with those sort of hybrid kind of rehab assignment stuff, like when they started doing it with Ohtani, I said to Jeff on the show, like, the Dodgers are always looking for ways to sort of innovate on everything, and this could be one of those ways. He was at the time was more on the side of like, this is just an Ohtani specific thing because of his bat, which is a fair point. But I think, like, considering where they are at with the rotation and how taxed the bullpen has been, if they can get 3-4 innings out of, let's say, Blake Snell, they may pull him up early and say, yeah, we're going to basically do this rehab thing here, and we'll piggyback one of our more bulk guys in the pen with you, and hopefully that still ends up being a break for the rest of the bullpen. And I'm with that plan, considering what it looks like in terms of the healthy arms. I'm totally fine with that. I think it's an interesting way to look at things. And it doesn't necessarily cost you an extra roster spot because of the Ohtani situation where he's a pitcher and a hitter. And so it's not like you have to, necessarily like lose an arm that would have been there previously because you're bringing back another pitcher. So I'm okay with that. And if that's what it takes, then yeah, bring it on. Like, let's see Blake Snell sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So Carlos, I see your super chat. I'm going to get to this question really quick. Any real update on Sasaki? Real, not really. He's throwing with more intensity is like the current point he's at, but they're still not sure when he's going to get off a mound. So he's pain-free allegedly, and he's just kind of in a holding pattern, I guess. So yeah, that's the realest update we have. Yeah. So to go to Carlos, this one's for you, Anthony, I guess. With Glasnow, Snell, and Treinen returning, who goes off the 40-man roster? Who gets DFA'd? What roster moves do you see?
The Dodgers always, a lot of teams do, but the Dodgers always tend to have guys that are very expendable. And so looking at the current iteration of this roster, going through it, I mean, who do you see as
your name is Noah, I wouldn't be very comfortable right now. Looking
through. Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty fair one, I would say.
So the guys,
Noah Davis,
I would say Nick Frasso
might be DFA soon.
Nick Frasso probably on the fringe. Jack Little could be. That's probably up for the pitcher side. I mean, CJ Alexander, we don't know much about him, but he could probably be a guy they move on from. I wouldn't be shocked if they move on from Ruiz at some point, but that's probably like when they make a trade for a bench bat. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think Little is a possibility. Noah Davis, obviously. Like, there are some guys that I think everybody knows are expendable, so I don't think it's too difficult a decision. It's not like they need to go like, oh man, is it Landon Knack? Or I don't think it's a situation like that. So when those guys do return, I don't think there's anybody necessarily that we're going to shed tears over them DFAing.
Do you think Nick Frasso would be first to go or Noah Davis, considering that they've called up Noah multiple times and we haven't seen Frasso yet, and he's getting lit up in AAA? Yeah,
the Frasso thing is interesting because I think we all probably thought we might see him by now. The fact that we haven't tells me, and that we have seen Noah Davis, maybe that they trust him a little more in a pinch if they need a guy. So yeah, he may be first in line there.
The stuff for Nick Frasso has really dropped off badly since his injury, and it just hasn't recovered. He was in the starting role before, and now they've tried him out in the pen, and it's just not looking good at all. I think they like Noah Davis's stuff a little more, but then you also have to consider like Frasso has 5 options remaining for this season and 3 for his career, where Davis has already used up some of his options. And Yeah, that might be like kind of a difficult decision for them, but I don't think either of them are like guys you're losing sleep over.
Yeah, exactly. That's was going to be my point. Is I don't think they're losing sleep over either of those guys. And your point is fair because they do make roster decisions, obviously based on remaining options and things like that. However, in this case, if it's like Frasso or Davis, I don't think it really matters because I don't think that they see I don't think they're fretting about like, oh man, Noah Davis is almost out of options. What are we going to do here? Like if he's out of options and it's his time to go, like it's his time to go.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Davis would probably be the first one to go just because Frasso does have a little prospect pedigree too. But yeah, I don't think they're very high at all on Frasso and wouldn't mind losing him.
Yeah.
So shifting into some other positive news here, we have 2 more All-Stars on the Dodgers, Yoshinobu Yamamoto his first time and Clayton Kershaw his 11th time. Kershaw was picked as the legacy pick from Rob Manfred, which I think they started that with Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera a few years back, where they added on an extra roster spot for a guy who has been in the majors for 10 or more years. So I saw a lot of people complaining on Twitter, like fans from other teams, that Kershaw was taking up a roster spot from someone who deserved it. But no, that's not the case. They added on a roster spot to give one of these types of players another opportunity to be in the All-Star game. So, yeah, congrats to both of them.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are now the team, and look, we'll take this moniker, but they are now the team that other fan bases love to hate and look for opportunities to hate on. And it's the money thing and, you know, the Ohtani thing and the deferrals and it's all of that kind of stuff. And the fact that they've been winning. So yeah, that's fine. Bring it on. But like the uneducated opinions out there on social media were a little bit tiring today about, you know, you're giving this roster spot to Kershaw and he's going to, you know, you're leaving off a guy who is more deserving. And that's clearly they didn't know what was going on here because Kershaw is the legacy pick. I think that this is a really cool idea, and I think that other sports leagues, some of them have adopted it in an unofficial capacity. But I think they should all look to do things like this because if they think that, you know, a guy is close to being done and he's probably not all-star level anymore, this is a really cool way to honor those kinds of guys. And in the season where Kershaw gets 3,000 strikeouts. This is a cool way to celebrate him. He's kind of a universally liked guy too. He's not like super polarized. It's not like they're doing this with like a Manny Machado when he's nearing the end, right? Where like,
well, not yet.
Yeah. Where like a lot of the league might hate him, like other fan bases might hate the guy or whatever. Like for the most part, you don't have a good case to hate Clayton Kershaw unless he's just like he's dominated your team. But that's like strictly performance based, right? Like people don't like other guys for other reasons. So I think this kind of stuff is cool, and I'm glad that Kershaw was able to be selected and is going to have that opportunity. Will be interesting to see if he does retire after this because they tend to give it to guys who they know are basically on their way out the door. So that'll be an interesting piece of this, but very happy for Yamamoto. Also, this is obviously well deserved for him, and probably the first of several in a Dodger uniform, we hope, because, you know, he's the real deal.
Yeah, for sure. Yamamoto probably even has a case to start the game. I think it's going to go to someone in Pittsburgh with a mustache. If anyone saw Dave Roberts' pregame scrum, he was asked about that with that exact kind of quote. So we'll see. But yeah, Yamamoto, incredibly deserving. Kershaw, the legend pick. Although Dave Roberts did say it's going to a tall guy he's thinking about to start the game. So, like, that could include Kershaw there. Kershaw legacy start, we'll see. But, yeah, great for both of them. Both of them deserved it from their perspective standpoints of the legacy standpoint. And then Yamamoto being one of the best pitchers in baseball. And like you said, I'm sure we're going to see Yamamoto in countless other times with the Dodgers and first of many for him. So that's really great to see.
Yeah, and was not too surprised that there weren't any other pitchers named. I don't think anyone in the bullpen really has a strong case at all, like maybe we have seen in years past. You know, so with the other guys hurt who we thought might have a chance, you know, when the season started, Yamamoto's been sort of the only guy standing. You know, so based on the numbers, you know, he's obviously the only guy that really made sense from this pitching staff.
I think I missed this super chat from the Sandwich. Time to hit the red button. It's time to summon Logan Forsythe to save us. I mean, yeah, Logan Forsythe was was a gritty player at second base. That's what we'll say about him. I think they traded Jose De Leon for him, who a lot of people were not happy about that at the time, but his career didn't really pan out too much. So, yeah, it's one of those fun trades to look back on.
Are you tell me this, Blake, because we may not see each other before, at least on a stream. Thoughts on the All-Star game? Are you excited? Does All-Star weekend excite you at all?
Not really. From a standpoint of like being off from going to the stadium, it's nice. But then MLB had the worst idea ever to make the draft during All-Star weekend. So like it's even busier with the home run derby, All-Star stuff. It just feels like it never stops. It's a grind.
Yeah, I know. They Major League Baseball was like the first to sort of really start tinkering with what their All-Star week looked like, and the NBA soon followed and then became a train wreck. But Major League Baseball just feels like such a letdown for the most part. Like unless your favorite team has guys involved in it, like it's like in a prominent way. It always just seems like it kind of drags on, and by like the fourth inning of the actual All-Star game, like you're ready to be like, okay, can we move on to the unofficial second half now? Like this is kind of played out. Like last year, like if you don't have Teo winning as a Dodger fan, like do you really care about the home run derby that much? Like after the first like hour?
Probably depends like who's hitting. There's been some exciting ones, but a lot of times like just kind of repetitive. So.
And I agree. There have been some pretty cool home run derbies, and you and I, kind of make parts of our living watching, covering that stuff. So like we're there, in terms of like in front of the TV at least. But like as a casual fan, like it drags on so much that by the time it gets exciting toward the end, maybe where guys are, he's on his 20th home run in a row or something like that, like you might have tuned out.
Yeah. The ones that kind of stick out to me were Ohtani versus Vlad. That was a good one. I think Jock versus Todd Frazier. I think that was the other one that was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the ones I remember. And
going back a little further, the Josh Hamilton one was obviously, that was crazy. If you've never seen that, YouTube it. The Josh Hamilton, it was at Yankee Stadium too. That he put on an absolute show. And then in Arizona in like 12 or 13, right around there, right around the 2012 season, might have been 12. It was in Arizona, and Robinson Cano had his dad pitching to him, and he put on a show as well, and he had a walk-off to win it in the final round. So that was a pretty cool one also.
Yeah, so we get a few of them, but then there's like the Pete Alonso winning one where the only memorable moment from that became a meme where he was just vibing out after the kid got hurt on the field. Like that's the only thing anyone remembers about that. So yeah, it's just, you get some good ones, some bad ones, but yeah. So we've got Yamamoto and Kershaw as all-stars, which means Andy Pages was not an all-star, along with Teoscar and Mookie, which deserved for them probably, but Andy Pages was a snub that made a lot of people mad. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think he was a snub. I saw somebody threw up a comparison between him and Fernando Tatis, and for the most part, Pages' numbers are better. And I might get hit for look. Pages is deserving. I think he should be an all-star. He's earned it. But also for like what this game is, like I'm also fine with Tatis being there. He is a superstar in this sport and in this league, so I'm okay with that. The other interesting part of this too with Pages is that if Corbin Carroll's not going to play, like I think we sort of have assumed he would be the replacement. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion at this point. I think that it's going to take at least two guys to go down, Carroll and maybe somebody else, because another one of the snubs that I'm sure people on the East Coast are talking about a whole lot today is Juan Soto. And Soto hasn't been Juan Soto great, but I think the numbers show that he probably is a snub this year. And so I think that, and he's a superstar. So Major League Baseball probably puts him in ahead of Pages if Carroll's the only guy who isn't going to play.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think Pages was definitely deserving. I get why he wasn't on over someone like Tatis. It's not what fans want to see for the Dodgers, but MLB also is considering, like, the Dodgers had 5 other All-Stars. The Padres ended up with 3 after Tatis, so like they don't want 10 Dodgers on the team, and then you lose a huge part of other fan bases because they don't just want to watch the Dodgers playing. So like some of that goes into it. Some of like the name recognition and history goes into it. Like if we're gonna say Kershaw was the legacy pick, there's a little bit of legacy there for Tatis kind of thing. I know he's a lot younger and hasn't done it as long, but like he's been a really good player for a long time now. So just how these kind of things go. There's limited roster spots, so there's always going to be snubs. Hopefully Pages does end up getting it, but like it's just kind of how it goes. There's always going to be some snubs.
Yeah, and guys that close the way Pages is, because I believe he was probably the next logical choice after Juan Soto. Guys that close to the finish line usually tend to get in, and so hopefully it works out for him. Guys who are still establishing themselves in the big leagues to make their first All-Star team, like in their second year, which is what he's in, have to just absolutely bash down the door. And he's been really good, but he hasn't done that quite yet. So understandable. And like I said, I think the first pick off the bench here is going to be Juan Soto for, he's got worthy numbers, and he's also a massive name. And he's arguably the biggest star in baseball outside of Judge and Ohtani. So Major League Baseball being desperate to get him in, it makes a whole lot of sense. He plays in the New York market as well. So
real Paul Skeens slander right there, calling him the third biggest star.
Yeah. I think Pages is going to have to wait a little bit, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I would love to see him in there because I think he is very deserving in terms of numbers.
Yeah, for sure. So a few more super chats here. This one from Carlos. Updates on Michael Grove, Kyle Hurt, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Brewstar Gratterall. Not a whole lot. So Michael Grove, River Ryan, and Gavin Stone are out for the season, so we're not going to hear like much about them at all. They're not coming back this year. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Kyle Hurt, I think, is in a similar boat. He might have a chance to return later, but I saw he posted on Instagram, I think yesterday or the day before, that he was throwing off a mound in Arizona. So that's pretty much the only thing we have on him. And Brewstar, haven't heard anything, but he is an option to return later this year. We just don't know much. So yeah, that's it on those guys. Then this one from Carolina. Not ignoring that the Trastros look better than our boys, but have they found a new way to cheat? I mean, yeah, they beat the Dodgers, so we're just going to say they're cheating.
Yeah, must be, right?
No other explanation, none at all. But did it kind of hurt to see Altuve go off the way he did this series, especially with all the boos and everything, or are you kind of just over it all?
It hurts to see him do anything, really. Like, I know that Dodger fans, when it comes to that rivalry in particular, had a natural and understandable hatred toward Carlos Correa. And I hated him too. For me, though, the bigger culprit in all of this was always Jose Altuve. So anytime he does anything, I get annoyed.
That's fair. That's fair. Just walking on the field, guys, annoying. I know Astro fans get very, very defensive of him. So, like, they search up Jose Altuve during games, and like they probably type in trash can or cheating or something into their search as well, just so they can see them all and reply. One of the funniest tweets I saw was like an Astros fan replying to every single Dodger account saying like, he's living rent free in your head. The Astros, you can't get him out of your mind. It's like, you're the one going out of your way to troll every single Dodger fan. Like, I think the Dodger fans are the ones in your mind right now.
The irony is incredible there. Look, deep down, there might be some feelings of Astro fans thinking that World Series was illegitimate also.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, they like Altuve's there. He's their Kershaw, right? So like, they are going to take up for him no matter what, and they do it with like veracity, because I think for them they're always on the defensive because of what happened with that championship, and so yeah, they're always looking for a fight when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
What a fan base. That fan base has grown into, or devolved into, however you want to term it, into one of the most toxic fan bases in terms of like that part of its history. Like there's just absolutely no gray area there for them. It's like nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong. And none of our guys are to blame for anything, period.
Which fan base do you think has become worse? Like just on, you can define worse however you want, but Padres or Astros fans? Because I would say those are probably the top two. I think Giants fans and Dodger fans kind of have that like mutual respect of it's a real rivalry. There's not been any huge like drama between them.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely like Padres got that little brother syndrome, and Astros like are just so conscious of the cheating.
Yeah, the Giants Dodger stuff is interesting because like what, and this was also my take on the Padres Dodgers rivalry, is that like it's a rivalry of now and kind of convenience, because both organizations have high expectations. Whereas like if one of the Padres or the Dodgers were in last place, like these series no one would care about. Neither fan base would care about these series. The Dodgers and Giants could be fighting for last place, and when those two teams play, like the fan bases are going to despise each other, right? Like that's a true rivalry, just like the Red Sox and the Yankees. But I think in terms of fan bases, for me, I think it's still the Astros, just because like I said, like they have this out for everyone. Like if Yankee fans say something about trash cans or illegitimate World Series, like they're on them too. Like they're attack dogs. It's what they kind of turned into in the last 7 years or so. For Dodgers in particular, like for us, I think it's probably the Padres because of what this has turned into. And then, the stuff that happened last series obviously adds fuel to that fire. But I think overall, it's probably the Astros.
Yeah, I think I would go with the Astros just because, like, they have the World Series ring from it. Like, we can say it's illegitimate, but they still have the rings and the trophy. It's in the record book. So, like, that part of it's harder to take away from. You can still always laugh at the Padres for not ever winning a championship in their history. Like, it's just go away, little brother type thing. Like the Astros, it's just, they're the annoying ones.
Yeah, and for us too, like that Astros thing, obviously it's going to sting more because they took that away from the thing that they got, they took it away from our fan base.
Yeah, for sure. So another super chat here from JY Kim, baseball newbie here. Welcome to the fandom. Baseball's the worst thing of all time when you're watching it, and then we still go back and watch it the next day. So enjoy. For the All-Star game, why aren't the outfielders selected based on performance like pitchers? Seiya Suzuki wasn't selected either. So, yeah, he's another guy who could even get in over Pajes, and it wouldn't be like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
So the starters are based on fan voting. The Dodgers and Cubs fans did kind of dominate the voting there, but PCA and Acuna and who's the other starting outfielder? I'm drawing a blank.
Tucker?
Yeah, so they kind of dominated the voting there. Seiya Suzuki, just another snub that didn't get picked because roster spots are limited, and there's a lot of deserving players and not many spots for all of them. So you're going to see guys like that not make it sometimes, and just kind of how it goes. He might get on as a replacement, but just unfortunate for the players who deserve it.
And to expand on that a little more, like if you're not voted in as a starter, but you are a reserve or someone gets hurt and you're picked that way, that is typically more based on performance.
Yeah. So Carlos wants to know what hat you're wearing. That's the USA Baseball, right?
Yeah, this is the USA Baseball WBC hat. So one of my favorites in terms of the international logos. I have a decent amount of the WBC international collection stuff. So those are always cool to like wear as a neutral hat.
Was that one of the alternates or different season? Because they wore the Old Navy their last time, right?
Yeah. This was like the first couple of years of the WBC. The red was one of their regular rotations. If anyone knows about Baseballism, that store, they have a physical brick and mortar store in San Francisco, right across from the ballpark. And so one of the last times I was there, They had this same hat, but it's the navy bill and like a heather gray crown. Super cool. I got that immediately when I saw it. It's really cool. So like a lot of the iterations on and I think that color scheme is like actually a baseballism like exclusive. But yeah, typically it is just navy, red, and I think that they actually wear on the field might be the only ones. And the navy one is probably the most common.
Yeah. Also, this is a good point from GI here, related back to the All-Star game selections and Seiya Suzuki and Andy Paz missing out. Every team needs to have one player at least, so like that even more limits roster spots. So like Kyle Stowers has been great this season, but you can make a case he wasn't more deserving than Juan Soto, Andy Paz, Seiya Suzuki. But the Marlins needed a guy, and he was their best player, so kind of how it all works out there.
How are you? What are your thoughts on that rule, Blake? I am not a fan of the every team needs to be represented.
I think they should pick all the deserving players, and then if there's players or teams that aren't represented, you can add them a player on like the legacy pick kind of thing, where they just add roster spots. Yeah, I mean, I also get it from MLB standpoint where they want every team represented, but you like don't need a player necessarily has to be there from the Rockies. Like they have 10 wins this season.
Right.
Like Hunter Goodman, deserving. He's probably the second best catcher in the National League. So it's not to trash talk him or anything. He's very deserving, but just in general, like you don't need players from bad teams.
Yeah, because and like, you know, the Pirates got Paul Skeens recently, and so like they're gonna have a guy, but like there have been several years where teams like the Pirates or the Nationals or you know whoever has been bad for a while, especially gets a guy in who's hitting 250 with 7 home runs and 39 RBI because every team needs to have a player. So you want to talk about guys taking spots from deserving players. Like it's that rule that helps that too.
Yeah. So do you know who the White Sox pitch or All-Star is this year?
Oh, good question. I do not know.
I didn't know, so I just looked it up, and I feel like this really does make our point here. It is Shane Smith. He has pitched in 17 games, and he has a 4.2 ERA and 83 innings with a 1.33 WHIP. So, good for him, but probably doesn't need to be an all-star just because every team needs an all-star.
That feels like a little bit like Dalton Rushing's first homer, where like, okay, cool, I got this distinction, but also like, does it really count?
Like that's literally like Dustin May being an all-star, like just not a deserving candidate for it. But yeah,
brutal. When before Kershaw pitched against the White Sox, we were trying to predict like what guy in the lineup he would strike out, and like Jeff and I both had to go and like look up their actual players because like we couldn't name a single guy except for Vargas on that team.
Yeah, and I think Robert's out, right? I think he's injured, so
yeah, he's out. Yeah,
that's an all-star. So there you go. That answers a lot of questions about why guys aren't all-stars. But also get into some questions now. I've already bookmarked a few from throughout the show. So we'll start with this one from Rod. Is the Dodgers defense a concern? I think I've talked about this quite a lot, so if you want to go first on this one.
Yeah, we've talked about it a while for a few times as well. It is a concern, particularly in the outfield. I think when everybody's healthy, I think it becomes a lot more formidable. Not good, but like good enough. I think like the defense wasn't great last year either. But they were good enough to overcome any deficiencies there. I think probably by the time October rolls around, health permitting, guys like Edman, guys like Muncy, I think they'll be back in that same boat eventually. But right now it's pretty bad. But that's mostly relegated now to the outfield.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the outfield defense is the biggest concern, especially since the Dodgers, at least right now, don't have a high strikeout rotation or bullpen. I think when Snell and Glasnow and Shohei are pitching more, like you might be able to make the case that's not as big of a deal. But yeah,
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, it's a point that we had not thrown into our conversations yet. But yeah, when Snell and Glasnow are back, and when Ohtani's sort of built up, those are all strikeout pitchers along with Yamamoto. So it becomes a little bit less of a concern that way too. That's a good point.
Yeah. So let's see what's the next one.
And this didn't hit us like as a surprise either. Like we knew coming in, like somebody in the chat just made this point too. Like we knew this was going to be not great when we came into the season.
Yeah. This one. Ohtani said he's missing a lot of the pitches he normally hits. What do you think is going on? Just seems to pull off a lot of pitches or is taking it the other way. So for me, I kind of just interpret it as like, that's baseball. Like a long season, you're going to go through the ups and downs of it. He's, I think, 3 for his last 30 or 3 for 31 or something like that, which if you break it down, that sounds really bad, but it struggles for essentially a week. In the whole context of the season, it's not that crazy. I know a lot of people have connected it to like the pitching and all that, but I posted it on our Dodger Blue Twitter account yesterday. His sample size in pitching is really small, but like if you go from the first start he made to now, he has like a 900 OPS. If you go from a second start to now, it's a 1,000 something OPS. And if you go from his third start to now, it's like a 480 OPS. So like there's just so much randomness in that small sample size. I don't think pitching is really an issue, and he's done it before. So I think it's just like the slumps of a season. And Dave Roberts said he still likes the at-bat quality Ohtani's taking and just kind of the ups and downs of the season.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's just going through it a little bit right now. When he is not going right, what's described there is sort of what you see is he's pulling off a lot of pitches. It looks like he's getting pull happy with stuff. And when he's right, he'll take pitches that are kind of middle or outer third and drive them the other way or drive them to center field. So yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of that right now. Concern level is like a 1 if you have to have any concern at all.
Yeah, I have no concern with him. 1 is probably the highest I'd go to.
Yeah.
So this one, Blake, are you at the stadium for press every day with Matt? How is this rotation for Dodger Blue streams and press? So Matt's been doing most of the games this year. I was there today. Matt is out for the next 2 or 3 days. So it was me today and yesterday, and on the 3rd. I probably do like 40% of the games at home, and he does 60%. And then with the streams today, Jeff was unavailable. Normally it would be him or Matt hosting, so I filled in for him. Just kind of, we have Jeff doing Tuesday, Thursdays, I believe, and then Matt usually Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So that's like our main schedule.
Did you say for streams?
Yeah.
Streams will be Tuesdays. So Sunday will be me typically, health permitting, like we say with the Dodgers lineup. Will be me and Jeff on Sundays, me and Jeff on Tuesdays, Jeff and Bruce typically, I think it is, on Thursdays. And then Blake, Matt, whoever needs will fill in and if one of those guys is not available. And then every once in a while, Scotty will still jump in. We had Scotty on last week or the week before. So that was a cool little surprise. So yeah, everyone's kind of still around.
Yeah, but right now I'm doing a lot more with like the website side of things and less on the streaming side because we've increased Jeff to doing more of these shows. But I mean, last year with coming up on the trade deadline and into the deep run of the playoffs, we had the live shows every day. So maybe that's something we can increase our workload a bit, and I'll get on here a little more and figure things out. But yeah, so that's kind of how the schedule works.
Yeah.
With Muncy expected to return late this year, which players do you guys have in mind on the trade block who could help make this team better heading into the postseason? So like we talked about, I don't think either of us have them making like a huge trade. I think they're going to kind of look on the fringes with a bench bat and possibly a reliever type thing. Maybe a guy in the bullpen who can eat some innings like the Ryan Yarbrough type trade they made a few years ago. But other than that, I don't see them doing anything significant. I don't think they want to pay the prices. I don't think they need to go out and get anyone crazy. Like they have a lot of guys who are supposed to come back, and you probably just bet on them.
Yeah, same. Yeah, we talked about this a little earlier. I don't think they make any big splashy trade. I think bullpen help seems like the most logical thing. And they just wait for Muncy to return and some of the other guys to get healthy to fill in while he's out. Maybe a bench bat, something like that. But yeah, I don't think like they're not trading for Nolan Arenado just because Muncy's hurt right now.
Yeah, if Muncy was out for the year, I don't think they would trade for Arenado. If Muncy was out for the next 2 years, I don't think they would trade for Arenado. Like, he is just not a good player anymore, and the contract is very bad. So,
Totally.
Yeah, that's just not something that's happening. This one's not a question, but from Alan, I hate bullpen games. Stop punting games. The bullpen games won the Dodgers some playoff games last year. They were pretty key. I don't think we should equate bullpen games and punting as the same thing. A bullpen game is when they're using everyone to try and win a game, and punting is when they have 3 of their back-end relievers throwing 5 innings and then bring in Kiké and Miguel Rojas to finish it out. Like, there's a difference there. Bullpen games can still be really valuable. I don't think they have the makeup right now on their roster to have a great bullpen game, but they can be valuable if everyone is healthy.
Yeah, I think that they use them at a necessity, and whenever those scheduled bullpen games are, they manage accordingly in the days before leading into that, and so it's definitely not a punt. It's because of limited options, and we've seen that a bunch this season because of guys like Snell and Glasnow, who have made a handful of starts combined or whatever it is, but. Yeah, punting is a very different thing. And I think just because you see a bullpen game on the schedule doesn't mean that they don't care about winning that one.
This one from GI. What do you see as Kasparias' new role that now that he's back in the pen, do they need a swingman as much as a guy who can go multiple games per week? I mean, I think he'll still be a guy who goes 2 or 3 innings, kind of in the role he was before they started stretching him out. And you might see that twice a week as opposed to him starting 1 game a week type thing or following Ohtani 1 time a week. So probably some kind of that hybrid role where he can eat 2 or 3 innings or he can give you a high leverage inning. Do you see anything kind of different than that?
No, yeah, I'm with you. I think they just pull him back into where he was successful. They tried to give him a different kind of role based on how he was successful in the other one, and just hasn't worked out so far.
What does the M and MV3 stand for? Mediocre, mundane, mid. Are we talking about the MVP trio of Will Smith, Andy Pajes, and Max Muncy? Or are we talking about some other group of 3 players on this team?
Yeah, look, Ohtani is the Ohtani hate's interesting to me. Like I do not understand it really. The guy is having outside of last season, arguably his best offensive season of his career. Kind of depending on what stats you look at. Freddie Freeman, looking at it now, not as good as like MVP Freddie Freeman season or Freddie in his prime, but like right up there with the elite in baseball, even with the June that he had. So I don't understand the hate there necessarily either. Mookie, okay, we don't need to get deep into that anymore. Like he has not been very good. And like we said earlier, like it may take us adjusting the goalpost now for him. Because I think we're still a little unclear on who he actually is going forward as an offensive player. But the MV3 stuff, it's funny, but I think it's probably a little misplaced with Ohtani and Freddie.
So another super chat from Carlos. Freddie is a free agent after 2027. He'll be 38. Do the Dodgers re-sign short-term contract, or do they search deep in the pockets for an all-star first baseman? You want to start? You got any opinions? Or
yeah, it's a fair question. I think depending on what he looks like as an offensive player, during that season, maybe they're like, okay, hey, here's a 2-year kind of deal if you want to keep doing this and retire with us. I think more likely, maybe it's Will Smith who moves to first base more permanently if they still like what Dalton Rushing is doing behind the plate. That may be the answer there for them longer term. Because remember that Will Smith just signed that 10-year deal not too long ago. So I don't think he's going to catch the entirety of that contract. So that might be a natural transition for him as Freddie leaves. Their first baseman is already in-house, and their next catcher, who they hope is a big deal, is already in-house now, too.
Yeah, my thoughts with the Will Smith thing and Dalton Rushing is I feel like they kind of have to make a decision earlier than that, though. Like, I don't think you're going to sit Dalton Rushing as a backup catcher for 3 years,
more seasons.
Essentially. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
It's like, do you trade Dalton Rushing? Do you maybe move Will Smith to third base or something? Figure something out there? Like, yeah, I just don't see them carrying Dalton Rushing with his value as a backup catcher when they could have said, like, hey, let's go trade him for a star who can help us win a World Series. I just don't think that outweighs the backup catcher value.
Yeah, I agree. And I think my general, like, if you made me pick a side on that question, I think Freddie retires after that, and everybody is happy with the deal because it probably produces in his tenure at least 2 World Series, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for.
I do think this is interesting, turning Josue De Paula into a first baseman. We'll see if he could handle it. He is not good at all in the outfield. So, yeah, maybe he's an option, but learning a new position is always a challenge and difficult and unpredictable. So, who knows? Got another super chat here from LLM213. This series showed we need another bat. We can't keep hoping that Mookie and Conforto will figure it out. Teo has been mid. Edman isn't an average bat. I think there's a lot to digest right there. I would disagree with a lot of it. Like, even if Teoscar is average and Edman's below average and Conforto doesn't figure it out, they still probably have the best lineup in baseball going into the postseason. Like, there isn't a single team out there that is completely thrilled with the bottom of their lineup. It's because they're the bottom of the lineup for a reason. And second, like, there's just not enough good players for every team to have 9 all-star caliber players in their lineup. So I don't really think they need to go make a splash for a bat, especially when you have Muncy coming back. That gives you Ohtani, Freeman, Mookie, Smith, Pajes, Muncy, Edman, Kim. Like, if you can't win with that lineup, you have bigger problems than the offense.
I agree. That is kind of my thinking on it. Is even if Mookie stays league average, Conforto doesn't really figure it out. Teo is still on a 25 to 30 homer pace. I know he hasn't been great, and I get that. But if he's a 115 to 120 kind of guy, depending on what number you want to look at, OPS plus, the weighted runs created, whatever, still pretty good player. Edman is interesting because we don't know exactly what he is because he hasn't been healthy in so long now. But with Muncy back, Paya's doing what he's doing, Ohtani being Ohtani, Freddie looks like he's coming back around. Will Smith, hopefully no second half slump this season. They're really trying to manage that. I think this can still be the best offensive lineup in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can put Ohtani in your lineup, Freddie in your lineup, Will Smith in your lineup, and Max Muncy and Andy Pajes in your lineup, even with everyone else, if you want to say they're washed or bad or whatever, that's still competing with any lineup in baseball. It's a really talented group right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think they're going to make a bench trade or something to bring in some guys who can help them in spot starts here and there. I don't think we're going to see any superstar trades or huge impact moves for this team this year.
Yeah, I agree.
This one, what do you think of Conforto lately?
He's looked better. I think there's
That's
been
a
more
very
results.
low bar.
There's been more results lately. So, I mean, yeah, what he's been doing the last couple of weeks or so, 3 weeks maybe, we'll take it, especially considering where he was. I think a lot of this is measuring Conforto against himself in this season. And so for a lot of it is like, yeah, you know what, if it's better than what it had been, all good.
Yeah, so something interesting Conforto said is he's been working on a lot of swing changes and stuff, trying to figure things out. And he said how he's had to be patient with things, like they just haven't clicked for him. It's not working right now, but just keep sticking with the process and things will start to come. And he noted there's still some work to do, but it is nice to see some signs starting to come through. Like he has 3 homers, and I think the last week it is. So like some encouraging signs there. You want to see more from him. They invested a lot into him with the belief that he was going to be a high upside offensive player and break out for them, but hasn't happened. And even if it doesn't, you can just not play him in the playoffs. Like they'll have Kiké starting, or Hassan Kim will be playing every day type of stuff. So just, it's better, but it's not the worst thing in the world if he doesn't figure it out, and you can kind of plan around that.
Yeah.
I guess somewhat related to the outfield and Conforto, he is on a 1-year deal. Do you think the Dodgers will go out on Kyle Tucker next year and get him? I am of the mindset that they will be very much involved in his market. Whether they're the highest bidder or not remains to be seen, but I think you're going to hear them connected a lot, and they're going to be talking and just kind of lingering until it dies out, whether they sign him or not. Maybe like 20% chance or something, but yeah, they're going to be interested.
Yeah, they're going to be in play. If all out means like an 8 or 10 year kind of deal, which I think that might be the starting ask, I don't think they're going there.
Yeah, I think his value is going to go up a lot higher than people are expecting. His career numbers are pretty similar to Juan Soto's, so like I don't think he's getting to that 700 million range, but like if Kyle Tucker got 500 million or something, I wouldn't be totally surprised, especially with how many teams want offense and outfielders, and the Cubs have money, the Dodgers have money, the Giants are still looking for stars, they have money.
Yeah.
Yankees could use a bat. Like his market's going to be pretty robust, so whether they end up signing him or not, we'll see, but I think he's going to shock a lot of people with his contract, and like whether that's the Dodgers or someone else, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think that's why I say they won't go all out, because I think the number and the years will be surprising to some people. I don't think 10 years for him is out of play. He'll be 29 going into next season, I think, something like that. And so, yeah, a 10-year deal obviously takes him deep into his 30s. I don't think the Dodgers want too many of those kinds of contracts on their books.
Yeah, so next year will be his age 29 season. I could see him getting like 12 years even. Teams get desperate.
Yeah.
They brings the AAV down.
There's a bidding war. You know who I could see doing this are the Giants. They're trying to make splashes. They need offense long term. They may do something like that. You know, they've tried and they've swung and missed on a bunch of big time free agents, and then they kicked one to the curb in Carlos Correa. And so, you know, I could see them being one of the teams who helps drive up the price on whether it's themselves or whoever ends up signing him, because I think that Buster Posey is looking to make his mark, and he could be aggressive here.
I think there's one other factor we haven't discussed too regarding Kyle Tucker and the Dodgers. The Dodgers' top 3 prospects right now, you could probably even make a case top 4, top 5, are all outfielders. And for a team that's probably going to need to get younger and cheaper, are you going to want to invest in another outfielder who isn't good defensively to begin with and would be on your books for a long time? Or would you just take the chances on Zaire Hope, Josue DePaula, Quintero, I think is the other one, and Mike Sirota kind of figuring something out and being that everyday player for you at the major league level? Like that's 4 options right there who could end up being starting caliber players. And yeah, I think if they were going to try and get younger, they might look somewhere other than the outfield.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Laura says, yes, on Tucker, I hope Dodgers need to get younger. The problem with that logic is you don't get younger in free agency. Like he's younger than some of the guys they have, but you're talking in a year, like then he's pushing 30 and then 32 in 2 years. So like you're not really getting younger from that sense.
And the majority of that contract is going to be on the other side of his prime.
Yeah, exactly. One here I had. Any chance they go after Acuna if the Braves go into rebuild mode?
I don't see the Braves. I don't see the Braves going into rebuild, and I don't see, even if they're sellers at this particular deadline, I don't see them rebuilding. And even if they rebuild, I think they rebuild around Acuna. But if he becomes available, absolutely the Dodgers would be interested for sure.
Yeah, I think they would make a serious push for him, and then you probably talk about like some of those outfield prospects I just named in a trade, and
gone.
maybe a Dalton rushing, but
Gone.
I just don't really see the Braves. I can't see them moving him. Also, like moving him in the NL, they'd probably be pretty hesitant on that too.
Yeah, against the team that they would hope to compete against at some point. Yeah, he's their Ohtani, and he's homegrown, and so. And he's still young enough that, like, if they decide to, like, okay, we're gonna sort of start over, he's still the middle, like he's still the pillar there that they're gonna build around, I think. But I would love to have Ronald Acuna. He's one of my favorite players, even though he's on a team that I hate.
Yeah, he would be fun, but I think we're looking at more of a hope than something that could actually happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to do it for questions. We stuck to baseball and didn't make you go into food talk unless you have any food take you have burning up and want to say.
I do not. I have some sort of dinner, which I don't know what it is, waiting for me after this, but that's about all the food talk I'll give everybody tonight.
All right. So I guess that'll do it for us tonight. Pretty terrible weekend for the Dodgers, but yeah, thank you all for joining us, and we hope we provided some relief and calmness over the Dodgers, that it's not the end of the world for this team, and losing to the Astros really sucked, but it's baseball. It happens. They're going to lose more games in the future. I promise you that. And they're going to win a lot more games than they lose. So
yeah,
overall, team's still in a really good spot. They got some guys coming back healthy. Hopefully the position players aren't out too long. We got the All-Star break coming up. So
yeah,
some stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, All-Star break is going to be good for us, I think, in terms of health, and just kind of hoping to get some guys right, Freddie and Mookie in particular. And even with this sweep, best record in the NL still, second best record in baseball behind Detroit. Still in pretty good shape. And then I'll say that Jeff and I will be back on Tuesday, so you can catch us then.
Is that the show right after they DFA everyone because they lost another game, or are we going to give them a little chance to figure this out?
It's probably the show where we figure out that we got to trade Ohtani.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So everyone, if you want to get your Ohtani packages ready, bring them in. We'll have some discussions around that. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Dodgers going to be okay. Tough series, but still in first place. And that's all that really matters at this point. All right.
And in the words of Jeff, still champs.
Still champs.